Had my second guitar lesson yesterday. It's a work in progress. What's up, guys? Today I wanted to talk to you guys about warping and how it can help you and hurt you in Ableton Live. But first, what is warping? Warping is Ableton taking your audio and it is stretching it or shrinking it, pinching it down to a specific tempo. So pretty much it is manipulating whatever audio you were putting within the software. The problem is that whenever you put this audio in, Ableton doesn't calculate it correctly and it makes it to where the audio doesn't line up perfectly with each other. So it ends up sounding not tight, not together, all over the place. So you may be wondering, how do I fix this whenever I open up a multi-track and all of my audio is all over the place? So let's jump into Ableton and I'll show you guys how to do that. So this is a multi-track that I opened up. It is We Just Want You by William McDowell. And I just opened this up and I'm gonna click play and have you guys listen to it.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so straight off, you guys know that this is totally wrong. It doesn't line up. The click and guide aren't together even. None of the audio is together. And you're like, how do I fix this? I can't use this in my service, in my praise and worship. So the reason that it does this actually, that I want to show you guys, is because whenever you click on any of these audio samples, down here, you could just click unwarp and it'll unwarp the audio sample. Your goal, you want this start point to be at 0, 0, 0, right down here in these three little boxes. Every audio clip that you put into Ableton within a multi-track should start at 0, 0, 0. And so how we're gonna fix this, you could go into every single one of these, unclick warp, and click right here and drag it back to 0. But there is a faster way to do this. What you're gonna do is that you're gonna go up here to live, you're gonna click that, go to preferences, and you're gonna go down to the record warp launch tab. And then right in here, it's gonna say auto warp long audio samples. And you are going to unclick that off, so turn that off. Okay, so now whenever you load up your multi-track, it will not warp your samples and they will load up properly, all starting at 0, each audio file, and it should sound like this.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, and that is how you get your multi-tracks to not be warped every single time that you open one of them, and where they will line up properly and sound correct as well. So now you may be wondering, how does warping help me whenever I'm using Ableton? And with that, I like it for whenever I'm editing loops and click tracks and everything like that. And even within multi-tracks, whenever I'm doing custom transitions and everything like that. But I want to show you guys how I use it whenever I'm creating click tracks and loops. So over here in Ableton, every single time that I create a click, I warp it, because you want the click to be warped to the grid. So whenever you put in a different tempo within Ableton, that click is always going to line up with Ableton. You want everything that you put into Ableton to line up to the grid. So what I do is, so every time I come over here and I have a click track that I have, and I click and I drag that in, and then I double click on it and I go down here to the bottom and I click warp, because I want to warp this click to the grid, to this grid value. What do I mean? What do I mean by the grid? The grid are all of these lines down here that you see. And that is what you want to line your audio up to. And another thing that I wanted you guys to know is that there are different forms of warping. The best one is actually called Complex Pro. So if you go down here to the bottom and right on this little box here, it's gonna say Complex. And what you're gonna wanna do is that you're gonna wanna go and click Complex or Complex Pro. Actually, either one of them is really good, but those are the two best forms for whenever Ableton can manipulate your audio and kind of judge it. So there are limitations for Ableton Live Intro. You actually do not have that Complex or Complex Pro capability within that. So Ableton Live Standard and Suite both have it, but that is what you always pretty much want to warp, use as your warp function. Now there are other ones in here like beats and tones, and the reason we do Complex and Complex Pro is because Beats does more with like percussive stuff and everything, whereas Complex Pro will be able to analyze melodies and different things like that. So always, if you can, warp using Complex and Complex Pro. So I'm gonna zoom in here, and to zoom in, you hold Shift and push the plus sign on your keyboard. And to zoom out, you push the minus sign. But I'm gonna zoom in here, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... So whenever you hover over one of these audio files, there's a little line, and there's a little gray marker that comes up. What you're gonna do is that you're going to right click on that and go up to where it says set 1.1.1 here. You're gonna click that, and that is going to set the start point for your audio file right there. Now, what we wanna do is we're gonna go over here and we're going to double click on that gray little area. That creates what is called a warp marker. You're going to click and drag that onto your grid. And it shows you right here, the 1, 2, 3, 4. It shows you each beat of the measure, depending on what you set your time signature as. So we're gonna line this up really fast. All you have to do is just double click to create a marker and then click and drag it. Now, what I do is all of the other audio waveforms within this click, they don't line up to the grid. So if I press play, if I click spacebar and press play, see how that changed tempos? Because that's not warped up to what the tempo of Ableton is set as. But what we're gonna do is we only want one measure of this click, because what you can do is you can loop it as many times as you want. So what I do is I click and I highlight one measure, and then I press Command L. And what that is gonna do is that is going to loop that one section over and over and over again. So now, whenever we go and click play, as you can see, it literally just jumps back and loops that click over and over and over again. One little tip that I personally like an 1/8 note click instead of a 1/4 note click. So how you quickly are able to edit that is you can double the speed of the click, or in vice versa, do it in reverse. So if you come down here, right below where it says segment BPM, there are two little number 2s that you see. And if you click the one to the left, it's going to double or half, whatever you want to call it, the tempo of the audio file. So now we have an 1/8 note click. And so that is why I like warping, and where warping can help you whenever creating click tracks and different things like that to keep you in time. Now that I have this click created, now again, we can drag in some loops. So I'm just going to, let's just do this one right here. So we click this one in, and now this one, it's warped already. A lot of these you can just drag in, they're already warped. And this one already lines up to the grid. So I see that it's lined up. I'm just gonna go ahead and come up here then and do like we did in the last one. So let's say that I want this loop for a song called Lord You Are Good. And I like to do all of my titles in caps. I just feel like it's easier to see, Lord You Are Good. And then you would type in the BPM, which I don't know the tempo for that. I'm just making this up. So we're gonna go with 115 space and then BPM. And again, click spacebar, and that orange arrow pops up, and we're going to click that and click play. And this is what it's gonna sound like. And there you go. And yet again, I would add more things to that. Make sure that they are warped and that they are lined up to the grid, because you know, if you have one thing that gets off just a little bit, it will affect, you know, the first measure that you hear it, it may sound fine, but 3 or 4 measures in, the slightest bit of it being off of the grid and not lined up with Ableton, it will be behind or ahead of your click. So that is how I use warping within Ableton Live, how it can help you, how it can work against you. And there are a lot more things that hopefully I'll be going into that deal with warping, and you will see what it is used for. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, that's cool too. Leave a comment if you have ideas for any videos that you guys want to see me do, like any tips and stuff. I would love to interact with you guys down there. Subscribe for more videos. You know, I'm gonna be posting more videos like this hopefully, and you'll get notifications and everything like that. But until the next video, I'll see you guys.